Welcome to the Blue Oasis podcast. This is a FEAT podcast for finding peace and prosperity, learning the history of hobbies, as well as developing a little side hustle. If you want to find peace and prosperity in your life, this is your show. Get ready. You're listening to the Blue Oasis podcast. I am your host, Adam Rothstein. All right, let's get to the show. 3, 2. And welcome back to the Blue Oasis podcast. With me tonight is Mathew Owens. How are you, Matthew?
Pretty good. Yourself, man?
All right, I'm doing pretty good. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a CPA. I quit my CPA firm job in 2006 to go into real estate full time, and was a real estate genius for about a year and a half before I got punched in the face, of course, in 2008, and learned some really fun lessons along the way. And since then, we've flipped a little bit over 1,000 houses. We've lent out over 500 million to flippers in different markets around the country, and we've raised a little bit over 200 million for different asset classes and strategies that we implement. And then, of course, the most important parts are that I'm a father and have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I live in Southern California and just love hanging out with the kids and being able to build the income streams that can kind of create the life you want and be able to bring your kids along with you and stuff. And so I've been traveling quite a bit with them and having some fun.
Nice. How many income streams do you have personally?
So it depends, over 10 now at least. So we do a lot of different strategies, and a lot of that was born out of opportunity. Other parts were born out of changing with the market and the strategies that happen with the market. And so, dependent on the situation you're in and also the resources you have, you can start to deploy different strategies. So, just to give you an example, we have a portfolio of buy and hold rentals. We have short-term rentals that we focus on and hold those long term. We invest in fix and flip debt where we're lending to flippers in different markets around the country. We do accounts receivable financing. We lend to law firms. I invest with a lot of different outside operators as well because there's only so much you can do yourself, of course, even when you have a good team. But at the same time, it's important to diversify into different asset classes, different markets of the country, different operators, so that you can get I'll say, a stronger, diverse base of investments. So that way, whenever you pool investments like that, you become a lot safer, so that you're not dependent on one specific strategy.
Absolutely, and especially these economic times. I have my audiobooks, and sometimes I'll sell a journal, and then I have my day job, and those are my income streams. Let's see. So you were a CPA at one point, correct?
Yeah, I'm still a CPA. I keep the license active and I just don't do taxes anymore, but I do help a lot of my investors and clients just with that right understanding because that's one of the biggest expenses. How do you reduce taxes in any way possible? And so we utilize our strategies to actually do that, which is pretty cool. Saving a lot of people, it's crazy. But just buying property and real estate, you can front load the tax benefits and wipe out big chunks of income for people on an annual basis. This is what we do every year when we're buying property is getting these big tax deductions so we don't pay tax.
So so I do have a lot of people saying that college is not worth it anymore, and it's not worth it to go to school. But I would argue that accounting is. Now would how would you go about someone whose situation is they don't have that much income, but they can afford a community college, or they could do online classes? How would you advise them to go about in getting that accounting degree?
So I think it's the accounting aspect of it is extremely important. It's probably one of the backbones to business is understanding the accounting function, how that works. It helps you structure deals. Understanding how to structure different projects is super important. You have to understand the accounting metrics and the tax side of all of this in order to actually make a lot more money. At the same time, you don't have to get that through college. I really don't personally believe that college does anything for you anymore. So other than maybe helps you grow up a little bit and gets you out of the house, and I graduated with a degree in economics with an emphasis in accounting, and I joke that I learned accounting in 2008 when the whole market crash, or I'm sorry, I learned economics when the market crashed in 2008, through the School of Hard Knocks doing that versus even my degree, which was just kind of useless data that I was just slowly learning, but really didn't understand how to apply it until you're in the real world and you're running a business and it hits you and it really matters. That's when you start to focus on that. At the same time, having that base knowledge of accounting really does help. But so does sales, marketing, so does AI now, of course. Being able to dive deep into getting different skill sets is super important now comparatively to, I'll say, before. And I'd argue it was important before as well, but it was less well known out there. And so I have a hard time. I have a 10-year-old son and a 7-year-old daughter, and I don't see the reason for them to go to college. They can probably learn more on YouTube than they can in college now with certain following the right people.
I do agree. I do agree. I think, I mean, you want to know something? I learned all about audiobooks from YouTube. I didn't go to college for that. Um, if anything, learning all the technical aspects which are on my YouTube channel, and maybe I'll get and do the CDs. I mean, I still know how to burn CDs right now, but and I haven't recorded. I actually recorded a cassette back in like 2006, and still had I was still learning Spanish on cassettes too. So like even these skills that you'd think would be outdated, like burning CDs and making cassette tapes, are still useful, especially with the digital, in this digital age, people still want the physical stuff too. So don't discount knowledge wherever you find it.
Absolutely.
And you would also agree with me that sometimes you're just going to learn unexpected lessons in unexpected places.
I think you learn the most when you take the biggest hits. So, when I quit my CPA firm job, I got my first deal under contract that I was going to go flip, and I was like, I'm done. I got to get out of here. I can't work and do taxes anymore, and it just wasn't my personality. At the same time, now I'm really interested in it to save money, but the I quit to go do that at the probably the worst time of the market at the end of the day. And it was a majorly humbling experience because I had never missed a payment in my life. My credit was like 800 credit score. I was flipping houses all of a sudden, thinking that I was dope, and realized I was not dope. It was the market that was doing it for me, and realizing that that was a major ego check that honestly helped me throughout the rest of my career to look out and look over my shoulder for that next left hook that I may be blinded by. And by getting your ego destroyed like that, you become humbled and you just want to constantly learn so you don't make those same mistakes again. And don't get me wrong, there's other mistakes you're going to make, but at the end of the day, how do you find a way to better yourself any way possible now because you're not that great? Everybody's just trying, right? So
Indeed. When you did quit in 2008, you just you didn't necessarily see the freight train coming down the tracks, did you?
yeah, so I quit in 2006. So in 2008 is when 2 years later, a year and a half later is when, all that hit. And I had no idea. I wasn't really paying attention to the economic side. I was just, wow, fix and flip houses. Let's go. I can get the numbers. I understand the math. Let's manage contractors. And that's what I wanted to focus on, when I saw the math on those and thought, wow, I can make, my salary on a couple of flips on this and not have to work at the CPA firm. I was in so much pain over here that it just pushed me into this. And I took some classes and really dove deep. At the same time, I think it gave me a false sense of confidence that I maybe shouldn't have had yet because I thought I was a good business owner because my bookkeeping was done. I was still a technician at the time doing that versus knowing how to solve problems and knowing how to stick and move and knowing how to keep your emotions in check when things go wrong, right? So you learn a ton during that time.
Indeed, indeed. Um, so how do you help investors make smart decisions based on your experience?
So I teach. I just help them any way we can. We own a nonprofit organization called For Investors by Investors, where we teach financial education and real estate education. We go out there and teach about different investment strategies. And what's funny is I'll go out and teach someone everything possible, say about investing in promissory notes or short-term rentals. And when people start to see the amount of homework and understanding and education that they have, most of the time they just want to invest with me in a lot of my projects because we are the experts on those types of projects. And so we raise capital from these investors inside of our funds or on specific deals. And then we also joint venture and partner with them and do all the work for them. So we'll buy property, renovate it, tenant it, or get it up on a short-term rental, for example, get financing in place, do all the work, and then let an investor come in with the down payment, and we give them 100% of the tax benefits. On some of our short-term rentals, if people are investing $200 to $250,000, it can equate to $150 to $200,000 year one tax deduction for them just for buying a property. So it's a lot of people haven't heard of these types of strategies, and it can be amazing if you did that at once a year to just reduce your income tax every year. It's pretty powerful strategies you can implement. So, and we realized early that most people don't want to operate real estate. They don't understand that it's once they own one rental themselves, it's a lot of work communicating with tenants and doing the tenants and toilets and termites and all that kind of stuff with these things and getting service calls and repair calls. Even if you have a manager in place, you have to manage the manager, make sure they're repairing your property correctly, they're getting multiple bids, they're doing collections right, they know how to market your property as well. Like that's a major asset management. So what we do is we put all that in place so that our investors don't have to, because we realize most people just want to be passive and just get a passive cash flow stream.
Absolutely. Uh, and sometimes they'll take the the easier thing, and sometimes lear- taking a different path is not the wrong thing to do. What are
I
the
agree.
biggest mistakes passive investors make when evaluating real estate deals?
So when they're looking at the evaluation of a deal, many times it depends if they're investing in the property directly and they're doing all the work themselves, or they're investing in, call it a syndication, where you're investing in with an operator that is doing all the work or that specializes in that asset class, right? So I invest personally with other multifamily operators or self-storage operators and things like that that might specialize in those asset classes. And so a lot of times investors do not do their homework correctly on those operators, doing background checks and criminal checks, making sure that they really do understand the operations of an asset like this and have the experience to do it in the first place. And on the direct property side, it comes with the same types of team members. The biggest mistakes they make is not vetting their property managers, their contractors, and their team first. By far, contractors and property managers have been the ones that have stolen the most amount of money from me, with contractors way out in ahead of everybody else. And so, so being able to make sure that you have your teams dialed in, whether you're investing passively with a team or you're actively managing your team, is one of the most underlooked things that people do. Now, you have to have your numbers right. You have to know and understand risk and say, if I'm analyzing any deal, what are the numbers in the deal? What's my cost to the value of that property? How much equity do I have? What is the leverage being used on that asset, right? There's a ton of different metrics. I even go so deep as to interview the property managers and the contractors and the different team involved when I'm investing with someone else as well, analyze their financial model to see what their assumptions are. Are they going to pretend like rents are going to go up at 10% a year for the next 5 years or something? In my opinion, rents may drop over the next few years just because of affordability. So, how do you gauge their assumptions, or what assumptions you're going to make on your flip if you're doing the active investment yourself, with what's happening in the overall economy and what you see coming down the pipeline, and how do you mitigate those risks? So a lot of investors, like I did in the beginning, I just wanted to go fix and flip a house. I was blinded by everything else except for fix and flip a house, right? And that can be great, but it can also, catch you as well and punch you in the face like it did me.
I think that's why generalists are sometimes the better leaders because even a scientist, which I know quite a lot of, um, their narrow focus is microbiology or bioengineering or chemistry. They're not looking at the broader side of the picture of how things can be.
Mhm.
And and even when you vet a team, you have to take into consideration, okay, what are these persons' strengths and their weaknesses? Can I have them uh, do plumbing, or can I have them do even some basic electrical work that's not going to where I don't have to call an electrician to come in and do repairs or whatever. And and I mean it is hard too because you go to school to learn a specific skill and you just and you can make mistakes too. And sometimes as a leader you also need to step back as well.
And I think that's really a key point because what a lot of really smart people do, I'll say attorneys and doctors and scientists and the ones that have gotten great degrees that have gotten a lot of education in that space. Doctors understand medicine, attorneys understand the law. They've never been trained on the proper financial education side of things or how to protect yourself on investments. And so everybody has to learn those things as well as they invest, and or they've never been trained if they're doing a deal how to manage the contracts with a contractor and make sure there's proper funds control and that the work is done adequately. And so I found that if I'm have a shortfall in a specific knowledge set like that, I'm going to bring an outside person in to help me with that process and help manage that process that's outside of the transaction to protect me in that case. And I'd highly recommend if you're doing homework on different operators, then you're going to want to go out and hire someone, hire an attorney to come look at that, hire a specialist that understands due diligence, for example. Say if you don't have the time or you're super busy yourself. And I found the doctors and the attorneys and those professionals that are working really, really hard at their profession, they're some of the worst at their financial position because they just don't have the time to do it and they've never been taught that side to set up the right structure so that they're really compounding their wealth long term. There are really good ones out there, but it's a matter of, hey, what's your focus and time? What have you been taught? You've been taught this one thing, which is amazing. It's just not the investment side. And it's like, why are you doing all this work over here? The whole point is to create freedom in your life so you don't have to do all that. And maybe you just do the ones that you want to help people with, right? And that's really, I think, the goal at the end of the day is have the freedom to, it's not to necessarily not work. It's just to have the freedom to work or not work. And I'll say work from wherever you want as well and build the life and the strategy you want, right? So it's really cool being, I'll say, a real estate investor because of the freedom that I'm able to get with my family where they're going to mastermind events with me. We're going on vacations and going to different countries, and I can work from wherever I'm at. And so does my team. And that's what's really cool is that they have the same vision where they want that freedom too. So that's really what that gives you long term.
Oh, that's
It's
amazing.
exciting, right? It's
Very
exciting.
exciting. Is there a specific um, software? Is there a specific software that you use to help you manage the finances of properties? Is it QuickBooks, or is there um, someone wrote some Python code to help you with all your finances?
So that is a very, very big question. And I think something that a lot of business owners fail at if they don't specialize in accounting and, tax and that side, right? Even myself as a CPA, when I'm running, we have 35 plus different entities that we work with, being able to make sure that's all dialed in on a financial side, on a bookkeeping side, is super important. But so is the operations and your math and your numbers are really what give you insight as to your overall operation. So there's a number of softwares that we use. The first thing we use is QuickBooks. for this. I'm trying to find a solution for QuickBooks using AI to be able to automate that entire process for us. And that's what's really cool is AI is coming out with all types of, there's so many tools out there to streamline things and automate things. It's really exciting. It's also scary because of the Terminator and these things. But at the end of the day, we use that. There's different property management softwares like Appfolio or Buildium that people use consistently for that. Our managers use, and we're actively involved in that. We used to own a management company, but we sold it because you don't want to manage properties yourself. So it's much better to do have someone else do that. We use Monday.com for a lot of our operations. We use Go High Level and Active Campaign for our sales and marketing arm. So there's a lot of different softwares that all get integrated, and then we do a lot of tracking for our individual houses. We run hundreds of houses and help manage an 800 unit plus portfolio of mobile home parks, for example, that we have to utilize a lot of Google Sheets integrated with multiple softwares to be able to actively manage it and be on it like very, very well. Because if you're not on the property management and the asset management, the whole entire portfolio underperforms.
Oh, right, I was muted. You didn't hear any background noise at all?
I did not know.
Okay, okay, something just went off. Um,
No worries.
okay. So AI, I did want to get into that aspect. It takes more water than we are bottling right now. There are a little bit of solutions to it, like the way the microchip is, and it just has this internal cooling thing.
Mhm.
Also, I'm still not on, like, back in the very early days of AI, when you saw Watson on Jeopardy going up against Ken Jennings, it was in this ice like this ice chamber or this freezing unit, and I'm like thinking, well, why aren't you putting this stuff up north? If you're gonna make the argument to me that we need to put it in data centers and everything, yeah, just put it up there in in the north. Let Boston take it. Let I don't know, Milwaukee take it, like
Right.
somewhere cold so it's not overheating. I don't understand that entirely, but just thought I'd mention that. What and I'm looking for the note not notepad but uh quick, maybe it was quick note or something. Doesn't
Uh-huh.
matter. Um so um second thing, follow up to your story. You did say that you had money stolen from you before. How did you
Yeah.
deal with the legal process of that?
So I think contractors are probably some of the worst. Some of them just can't manage their money correctly. Some of them we actually got stolen from by a professional con artist that is doing this to tons of different people and had all his documents all perfect and everything and submitted them all to us and everything. And it was a con job in that case. And they stole a ton of money from us. We've had contractors steal. We've after doing 1,000 flips, you've dealt with your fair share of shady contractors, right? And it's a matter of is it worth it to sue them for it? It's never worth it, and they usually don't have enough money, the money, to be able to collect in the first place. In this case, we had to sue for fraud because they tried to declare bankruptcy, and then we won and proved fraud, and then the guy went to jail for something else like breaking and entering or something like that. So, don't get me wrong, I wanted to get the crowbar and the blowtorch out, but you just got to go the legal route, so and but and what's interesting about that, about taking that hit, is because remember when I told you I took a major hit when I quit my CPA firm job because of
Mhm.
that and other, challenges we had faced through doing all of these different projects. You could imagine the amount of problems. Not a single family flip had no problems with it, right? And there's been, issues that have come up where we had to dig underneath the 5-lane street to get the city sewer and stuff like that. It was insane stuff. And what's interesting is that even though we were stolen from by a large amount of money, emotionally, I was able to wipe it off my shoulder and say, all right, how do we focus on the solution and how this never happens again? And how do we make this money back? And, then we went on to raise a $38 million fund that, helped us recover from that. Right. So, and it's because when you're emotionally hurt like that, you a lot of times want to, keep your head down, focus on the, woe is me, hurts, right? It always hurts if that happens. But that doesn't do you any good. So going out and writing down a bunch of solutions of what you can focus on to target to solve that problem is way more effective and can give you a massive amount of power forward, especially when it works. I remember losing about $50,000 on a multifamily deal that I thought I was going to make a couple $100,000 on, and I remember telling my wife, "Put your hand on my chest, like I can't breathe right now. I just lost a salary today." This was like 2008, so that was a salary back then, of course. But now that's not a salary anymore. But you know, uh, I had lost this money and I'm like stressed about it. And the next day I woke up and I'm like, I'm gonna go find another way to do this. And I went out and got another multifamily under contract and was able to wholesale it off and make $70,000 in 2 weeks by focusing on that new strategy because I wrote down a bunch of things that I'm going to go focus on and attack until I make that money back. And I just was like, I'm not thinking big enough. What can I do to make that money right now? And I was able to do that. And it really has a major aha moment when something like that happens because you had the power at that point to turn your mindset around. And then it turned out in that positive way, which makes you so much stronger down the line when crap happens. Don't get me wrong, there's other crap that happens that you want to give up and you're like, I can't take this anymore. This is too much pain, right? But you realize that if you push through, that's the only way through that pain. And so you're able to actually achieve way more when you have that kind of mindset instead of just stopping and letting that emotion stop you. So you only learn that after taking hits.
Of course, of course. And um, I was born in 1994. I am at the
Okay.
very end of that millennial line. I have friends who are technically Gen Z, and then I have, my older sister. She was in 92, and then so we're like the last of we're called Zillennials apparently, but and many people around my age want to just give up and everything, and sometimes maybe they do need to quit that job because it is too much for them and they're just not a good fit. I mean,
Right.
Michael Jordan quit baseball because his mindset was more equipped to handle basketball.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. If anything, I learned from during the COVID era, I learned how to publish books. I learned art design. I learned video editing. I wore all the hats. And also during that era, I also narrated audiobooks for clients. I did audio editing. I could do it all.
You're finding ways of making money doing these things. It's awesome to be able to take that on your own shoulders and be able to actually just do it. And I think that type of thing is what people need to be inspired by is that doing you a lot of people in your generation, and I'm a little older, I'm 48 now. I'm a Generation X, so we just don't care anymore about anything, so that's at least what Instagram tells as far as who we are, right? But the um when you're first starting out or you don't have a lot of money, realize in order to be an investor, in order to make money on deals, you don't have to have your own money. You have to understand that you need to bring in capital. Capital is just a resource to do this. You can bring in capital, you can bring in the deal, you can bring value to a deal without doing all the work on that deal and build your net worth instead, where you're basically working to create assets that are going to pay you long term instead of working to trade your time for money all the time, which is really the hardest part because you're never going to be able to retire if you're always trading your time for money consistently and not building your wealth so that your money's making money for you through these different projects and real estate and investments and businesses and things like that. Now it may feel like, hey, inflation is crazy. Nobody can afford anything right now. I'm never going to be able to buy a house. And, like this is the what I see out there from the younger generation of struggle because of the lack of opportunity in the workforce where people aren't hiring as much right now and things like that, right? And but what it comes down to is there is so much more opportunity out there that you can ever imagine right now, especially with AI out there. If you learn these types of strategies and you really focus and dive deep, you can create businesses out of thin air with no employees and no overhead or very little based on the LLM costs and some of the costs out there. But at the end of the day, if you really deep dive in that space, you can kill it and make so much money. And I encourage people to really do that because I really do believe in the next 5 years that 25 to 50% of the jobs are going to be gone, right? And now they'll get replaced by other jobs to some degree, but maybe 10 or 15% replacement in a different industry. Remember, AI is literally doing this stuff for you. There's now Claude, Cowork and OpenClaw and things like that are coming out to where they're literally personal assistants. They can do a ton of your work and never forget anything. And so being able to have that at your disposal, don't look at it as, oh my God, the coworker is going to go, steal my job. Think of it as, oh my God, I can go help and I can go and use this to help society as a whole and solve a problem. Just thinking out loud, what if some person decided to go finance robots, right? So then you have a robot in every single person's house that literally grew food all day long, and you destroyed big agriculture for that and made that now. And once one robot knows how to farm, all of them know how to farm, right? And so this one societal potential problem that you could solve, with an idea like this that's coming out because of this, right? There's so many things out there. If you just can think about ideas, how do you solve the world's problems? It's at your fingertips as long as the government doesn't get in the way and stop you, you know? So,
Absolutely. And if robots are gardening and farming, like you can say you grew your own
there you
food,
go.
even
Yeah.
though the robot did it for you, but that takes a big hit to big
I mean,
agriculture
it,
and
yeah, if you think about it, it would really reduce costs massively across the board. You set up collectives out there. I'm a big farmer, so I think about these things. I have a big, I'm a prepper and, have water barrels and all that kind of fun stuff,
I think I would be a little bit hesitant of like putting the robots with the cows because cows sort of freak out on certain things. They like you drop like a bottle in their uh, in the fence
Their trough.
off
Mhm.
area and it's on the grass that they look at it like
What is
that
this?
and 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 it's like they just freeze up too. So I would
Right.
be very hesitant about putting robots with cows.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
So
we'll
just
have to see, I guess, huh? So
yeah. I have sold 4,000 audiobooks.
that's amazing.
4,000. Even though it hasn't yielded me, $4,000, it still yielded me 2,000 over a few years, but hey, I'll take it. Um, and and going back to what you said, these jobs are going away. I didn't use AI to make any of my audiobooks. So even still in a digital world, you can still make it even without AI too. And Spotify Premium too. Anyone can listen to it if they have Spotify Premium. There's other ways to go around it. And that's not even a direct purchase. It's more of a listening hours. And if you listen all the way through, I earn, let's say, $5 per listen on that. And there's just so many other ways to think of things. And even though the gas is up, we've got Strait of Hormuz blocked off and a million other things and wars we shouldn't be starting or even involved in,
Right.
um, there's still ways to make a difference and just overall, and more importantly, still grow your community too.
And I think the whole idea here is I think with AI and with the technology boom that's coming that I see, even though there are limitations like you talked about with power and water and those issues that need to be solved in this space and they need to hurry up about it as well. I think there is the power to free people where we aren't necessarily using the US dollar anymore because everything is so cheap. Because if you think about it, if labor goes away, that's half the cost of most products out there at the very least, right? Let alone medical care that can be reduced, let alone food, like I just talked about. A lot of the mining of materials and things like that can get way more efficient now as well for raw materials. And granted, resources are always going to be a need, but at the end of the day, the ability for people to live cheaper now, I think, will happen, even though I think before that we're going to see massive inflation and a major upheaval and a major change. We're already on the precipice of, in my eyes, a economic collapse, and you were looking at debt bubbles in the commercial debt space. Really, really struggling. We're seeing private credit have problems. We're seeing auto loans bump up as far as default rates. We're seeing a lot of warning signs on the wall, and all at the same time where AI over the last job count and the job losses, whereas accounted for about 10% of job losses. That's a massive figure if you really think about it. And so I think it's more important than ever to take action and be able to go out there and make money for yourself and figure that out. My kids now, even at 10, I'm starting to have them take AI classes and learn how to sell things on eBay and learn how to do different income generating activities and how to solve problems. They don't even go to a normal school. They go to a school that teaches entrepreneurship and teaches public speaking and trade and barter and different strategies like that out there, because I don't believe necessarily, as per our discussion, in the traditional school system anymore. They don't really teach them anything of value for the future, right? So, and granted, it's important to learn, math and writing and be proficient in those things. Maybe not history because that's written by the victors, but it is what it is, right? So,
I,
but maybe it is important, but I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist. So,
yeah, uh, I'll always say history is very important. As someone who
yes,
once had a 100% in his ninth grade history
there you
class,
go.
every single question right, every essay perfect on everything, and just I will die to the death on saying that history is very important and also prevents us from making, astronomical mistakes like we did in the past. So don't want to
Right.
go through that. Uh,
Absolutely.
the one thing the AI, is doing, I see that Google has this music maker and they have Gemini and it can create music itself, but you're never going to get the same thing like when Avicii was around. Like you can't duplicate that. You can't duplicate Dead Mouse. And the artists I'm talking about, Dead Mouse and Avicii.
I, I do not know. So
Avicii, you don't know Avicii?
I'm a 90s hip hop listener. So that's my avatar right there. So
Oh, Strobe, I remember, and Ghosts and Stuff. Rob Swire was on that track as well. Avicii had levels. He had days and nights. He did well with that. Um, Silhouettes was pretty good. Um,
Nice.
I think Fade into Darkness was something else too, but EDM was like back in the 2010s when I was in college, like everyone was into Avicii, and a little before that, everyone was into Dead Mouse too, but Avicii um was there and and even though he died in 2018, I mean, he lived he lived a wonderful life too.
Interesting. That's cool,
So,
man.
but
Yeah, it's
because
I'm seeing AI out there right now starting to be able to create tons of music. I have a friend of mine that's doing that over and over again. He actually even created a rap song about my company. It was pretty hilarious. So, and but he did it just because he knows that I'm a Tupac guy and that kind of thing. And I used to listen to all the hip hop stuff and everything. So back in the day. Now I'm more into rock and things like that. But yeah, so.
do you think we lose ourselves with, with just giving so much to AI? Because I will, there's also something of just going to a concert, and whether it's Taylor Swift or you're in something and in, I don't know, Capital One Arena, where
Right.
that's the closest hockey arena, NHL arena where I live. Um, there's something about going in person to see someone perform, and robots can't do it. Now, I mean, from some of the
Mm.
robots I've seen, they can't even do the dishes right, and they vacuum
Yes.
incorrectly,
They're
and
not there yet. Right.
and and they break tables and all this stuff. I will always appreciate someone who is good, even if they're pressing buttons and doing um, all that in DJing like that. Like there's still something there that robots can't do.
I agree. And I think you're going to see more and more people in business as a whole going out and just focusing on relationships, in person, live relationships, and not online stuff to get deals done and get sales done and stuff like that. It's going to be a lot more value in those relationships that you consistently develop and focus on because of AI, because there's going to be so much of it that it's going to become noise, very much like the internet now, right? There's just doom scrolling and seeing tons of stuff. After a while, you're like, this is pointless. Why am I wasting my time? It's just too much. I don't care anymore. Let me just go in the forest and get away from all this and, hang out with people, or go to a concert and, get out of that, So, and I think that's going to become more and more valuable over time, having really strong relationships. And if you're, a business owner, you're trying to make money out there, I think being able to create a following for yourself, to be able to show people who you are as a person is more important than ever. Now, pretty soon, those people that you're following are going to be AI versions of themselves, and it's going to be fake and it's going to look real anyways, So, but it's already there. I'm trying to find a way to so that I don't have to do YouTube videos anymore and stuff like that, right? So, but at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of opportunity, but yeah, I mean, there's going to be some major negatives, and I think no one's slowing down and taking the time to look at the protections and the importance of security and things like that right now. And so there's going to be a lot of bumps in the road along the way, and I hope we survive it, So at the end of the
Me
day,
too.
so
Me too. Okay, I think my last question for you are what red flags immediate I think we did touch on what red flags immediately make you pass on a deal, correct?
no, we didn't do that.
Okay, okay. So given your experience, what red flags make you pass on a deal?
It really just comes down to structure. So the first thing I'm looking for is, do the investor, as me as the investor, get paid first? So I want to see incentive for performance built into the structure. So if I'm not getting a return first and then a return for the operator that's doing the deal, then I typically want to pass on that type of a deal, right? And then some of the other aspects are I really try to look at what the return on investment is, but dependent upon the risk and how that operator thinks. If that operator is very aggressive and not giving me risk mitigating answers on questions, I'm immediately passing on that deal. If the operator doesn't have experience in that space or understand how to run their business, I'm immediately passing on that deal. So you're looking for people that have that experience, that can operate it effectively and efficiently and be able to perform long term. And that takes a unique person person because there's so many things that can go wrong regardless if they're good or bad operators. And so how are you going to fix it if you're a bad operator and don't have those solutions yet, right? So and if they don't if you're new and you don't have that experience yet, to go and do deals and raise money and do performance, work with someone else, that already has that experience. Add value to them, right? You don't have to, put the money in, go raise the money yourself. You don't have to go find the deal. You could do help with property management. You can help with construction management. You could help with accounting, with marketing. There's a million ways to be able to add value to other people out there based on whatever your skill set is or what you love doing, right? So, and I would suggest getting out there to live events like we just talked about to do that in-person type meetings to find new ways other people make money and new ways people actually perform out there. So
Absolutely. Um, Anything else you want to add before I close out the segment?
yeah, if anybody wants, you can go to our website at MathewOwens.com with one T in Matthew because I say my parents couldn't spell, so that's one T and I got to say it every time. But MathewOwens.com, I have due diligence checklist on 200-point due diligence checklist on all the questions we ask when we're working and trying to invest in a different deal. We have master classes on raising capital, on how to fix and flip properties, on how to lend money, all different types of financial education type strategies that we just teach on all the time and add value. So if anybody wants to reach out, let me know. I can help.
Okay, MathewOwens.com, one T.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. And if you would like to support this podcast, consider purchasing a journal. This is off of Lulu.com. It's got a 97C. No, that's not Connor McDavid. It is just a random player that I made up, and the 8-bit artwork design is all mine. But overall, I've got a goal that I want to hit in my lifetime, 4 million audiobooks and maybe hit that $8 million mark. I know that's a huge goal, but I want it. So if you
That's
want to
awesome.
support me, links for all my audiobooks are available in the show notes below, Spotify, or wherever you get your audiobooks. You can search out my name. There's also another Adam Rothstein, apparently. So just if you want to listen to his stuff, go ahead, but just still listen to mine. The audiobooks include Growing Baseball, Growing Hockey, Determination, Chess, and an ML sorry, an audiobook on MLB stadiums. That's the most recent one. I don't cover all of them, so you're not going to find Connie Mack Stadium in there, uh, and and you're not going to find some others as well. You're not even going to find the original ballpark the Red Sox played in as well, but you're still gonna um, but it's still gonna be very good, and I cover most of the MLB stadiums currently. You also won't find Sutter Health Park in that audiobook because I don't consider that an MLB park. But hey, check it out if you're a fan of baseball, especially baseball, growing baseball, and an audiobook on MLB stadiums. Those are your audiobooks, and and I think that does it, unless you have anything else.
That's good, man. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of the Blue Oasis podcast. With that being said, take care.